Hey everyone, Ben here and welcome back to the channel. It's launch week for F1 22, one of the biggest racing game franchises and licenses out there. But as we know, there are already two F1 2022 style cars in the sim world, in Assetto Corsa and Automobilista 2. So I thought I'd take a look at how they stack up against each other with some laps at Silverstone and let you know which I think offers the best driving experience. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to see more F1 22 on the channel, be sure to leave a like. So first up, we're running the VRC Formula Alpha mod in Assetto Corsa, a generic interpretation of an F1 22 car with a skin pack added. Of course, what you'll notice immediately is this car has porpoising. I'm running the default setup and it's an absolute nightmare down the straights. In fact, I can almost feel my back aching just sitting in my sim rig. And that is a characteristic of driving F1 22 in Assetto Corsa. It's a noticeably physical experience. Because the road surface is nicely simulated and the car itself does a good job of reflecting the new rule set with ground effect downforce, these things are a proper handful. You feel the understeer on turn-in and there's a decent chunk of oversteer on acceleration, which means you have to be really careful with your right foot, and short shifting through the lower gears definitely seems to be the way forward. Once up into 5th or 6th gear, the car does feel nicely planted though. Turn-in is nice and sharp, but having said that, I couldn't take cops flat out in this car. Perhaps that's how it'll be in real life this weekend, or perhaps I could dial the car in with setup changes. The mod itself features impressive depth. This is a car you can hop into to lap, but to extract the max from it will probably take time and dedication to learning its quirks and how to get a balance that works for you. But overall it feels great, although I do have to acknowledge that of all of these options that we're looking at, this probably takes the most work to get hold of and installed. You need the base game, you need a separate paid for mod, and if you want real world skins, that's another set of mods too. And if you want to run an AI race that even resembles real life, then you'll be downloading grid presets or creating your own. I'm also running a bunch of graphics mods to make the game look as good as it does too. So this is a very enjoyable and engaging mod which brings with it plenty of challenge, but you have to jump through some hoops to get it running. On to our second F1 22 car then, and we're diving into Automobilista 2. This car was introduced as a free content drop to the base game just a couple of months ago, and I'm running modded skins to provide an extra bit of authenticity. As ever, the game looks pretty good, although the car model suffers a bit, I think, with a dull, somewhat matte texture to the liveries in off-board cameras in the game. Jumping on board, and once again this is quite a physical experience. The car feels nicely alive and you get a decent amount of feedback through the wheel. It does though feel a bit smoother than the VRC mod, and you don't get the pronounced porpoising that you do in Assetto Corsa, even though you can induce some in the right conditions. Once again, there's a decent chunk of oversteer on acceleration, which means you have to be careful with your right foot, and at high speeds the car is similarly sharp on turn-in. However, as is often the case with AMS2, it is a bit easier to catch the back end when oversteering, either at low or high speed. This was the only car I could take cops flat out in 8th gear in, and I could be very aggressive over most curbs on the lap. It is though a fun, exhilarating experience, and it does provide similar sensations to that of the VRC car, only everything is just a little easier to correct and finesse. I felt like I could immediately get on top of this car and push it, where by comparison I'm still a little bit scared of the VRC mod in Assetto Corsa. It's also very easy to set up and get racing with, although you lose some of the grid customization that Content Manager for Assetto Corsa allows you. The trade-off is simplicity. This comes with the base game of AMS2 at no extra charge, and a couple of clicks gets you a skin pack. There are in-game championship options, but ultimately it suffers again in terms of offering a truly authentic F1 22 experience. Right then, on to the new official F1 22 title, where we've hopped into the Aston Martin. The headline features for the game have left me pretty underwhelmed, I must say. F1 Life feels like a waste of time to me, although I'm sure someone somewhere will enjoy it, and the offline career modes look virtually untouched. But the key thing of course is the driving experience, and with a new generation of cars to simulate, there are quite significant changes on track compared to last year. As with the two previous cars, the impact of ground effect downforce can be felt, with more understeer into corners and oversteer on exit. There's a new tyre model in effect too, reflecting the shift in real life to larger wheels and a stiffer tyre carcass. The lower ride height of the cars also makes curbs much more challenging this time around, and I believe you can even get beached on them. However, as you'll have already seen, porpoising is not simulated in this title, which does hint at some limitations in the physics engine and track mapping. Indeed, the ride in these cars is buttery smooth. Everything feels like it's got a nice predictable weight to it, and it's probably the least physical of all three cars that we're testing. In part that could be because the tracks aren't laser scanned in the title, meaning some of the details are missing. But the driving experience is undoubtedly enjoyable. It feels authentic, albeit less aggressive than the VRC mod in Assetto Corsa. It's probably more comparable to the cars in AMS too, albeit I would argue slightly more challenging to tame when you start to lose the back end. Where F122 really wins though is the best in class offline experience that it offers. So where does that leave us? I genuinely enjoy all three cars, and they share much in common in terms of top line driving characteristics. The strengths and weaknesses of each really largely reflect the sim titles that they're running in. The VRC mod provides real challenge and depth, but requires commitment to access and master. AMS2 provides a great hop in and race F1 experience, but is perhaps just a touch too forgiving. And F122 lacks some of the physics and force feedback sophistication of the other two titles, but it feels authentic, looks great, and has all of the trappings of real life Formula 1. Which you'll prefer will ultimately come down to which of these qualities you're most looking for, how much time you have to play and how much appetite you have for downloading mods, and how much money you have to spend. Let me know in the comments which, if any, you'll be racing, and let me know if you want to see more F122 content on the channel. And I'll see you on the next one.